Imagine an almost unbelievable amount of wealth just buried deep in the ground. We're talking trillions of dollars, a figure that's, frankly, hard to wrap your head around. Today, we're diving into something really significant: Russia's recent annexation of parts of Ukraine and the immense value our source material says these lands hold.
Yeah, our main source for this deep dive claims to unpack what it calls Russia's last move and, the huge potential gains involved.
Right. So, our mission for you listening in is pretty clear. We're going to try and unpack what's really at stake here. Why are these regions so valuable? What could it all mean for Russia, for Ukraine, and maybe for the rest of the world? We'll look at the numbers, the strategy, the unfolding situation, just to make sure you get a good handle on it all without feeling, totally swamped. Okay, so let's get into it. Ukraine's natural wealth. Our source lays out some pretty staggering claims here. It says Ukraine has 117 out of the 120 most used metals in advanced industries. Think about that. Almost everything needed for modern tech.
It's an incredible figure, if accurate. We're talking massive reserves: titanium, iron, and crucially, lithium. The stuff essential for batteries and phones, electric cars.
Yeah.
Everyone's scrambling for lithium.
And that's not all, right? There's also huge deposits of coal, natural gas, oil, tons of other raw materials. The
Right.
source estimates the total value could be in the tens of trillions of dollars.
But, and this is a huge but highlighted in the source,
Yeah.
the massive chunk of these reserves, they're in eastern Ukraine,
Yeah.
right in the areas Russia recently moved to annex.
Okay, let's unpack that annexation. Just a few weeks ago, President Putin signed the papers, formally absorbing 4 Ukrainian provinces: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. If you picture a map, they kind of form a crescent across the east and south of Ukraine.
And the combined area is substantial, around
Yeah.
90,000 square kilometers,
Mm.
which works out to about 15% of Ukraine's total landmass. And you've got roughly 9 million people living there.
Right. And Russia stated it held referendums, claiming overwhelming support, like 87% to 99% approval for joining Russia.
Yeah, that was the claim. But crucially, the West sees those referendums very differently. The view is that they were rigged, invalid, conducted under pressure, not legitimate.
And this sounds familiar, doesn't it? It really echoes what happened with Crimea back in 2014.
Exactly. The same method, more or less. A referendum, then annexation, while the West largely well watched.
So what does this actually mean for Russia? Our source goes way beyond just that headline trillions figure. It talks about gains on several fronts. Where do we start? Maybe the economic and energy control.
That seems like the core of it, yeah. The source really details this.
Yeah.
Let's take Donetsk. It's Ukraine's industrial engine, basically. Historically, like 20% of its industrial output, and it has Europe's 4th largest coal field.
Wow.
Huge.
Wow. And Luhansk.
Another major industrial hub. Metals, machinery, farming industries, mining, chemical plants. Lots of coal mines there, too.
Okay. Then Kherson
Kherson's big for shipbuilding. It's got Ukraine's largest port, plus a lot of industrial engineering.
and Zaporizhia. That's the one with the nuclear power plant, right?
That's the one. Europe's largest nuclear power plant, also one of the top 10 biggest in the world.
Yeah.
It used to supply about a quarter, 25% of all of Ukraine's electricity.
A quarter. That's
Yeah.
huge. So losing control of these areas is just a massive blow to Ukraine's economy and energy independence.
Absolutely massive. And it's not just the current output. The source emphasizes the resources in the ground. These 4 regions together hold about a third of Ukraine's total mineral wealth.
A third. Can you give us a sense of the scale? What kind of numbers are we talking about?
Well, the source highlights just the coal, for instance. Over 30 billion tons in these regions, valued at something like $11.8 trillion, just the coal.
11.8 trillion. That's just astronomical.
It is. And if the annexation sticks, Russia could gain control of, let's see, 63% of Ukraine's coal, 11% of its oil, 20% of its natural gas, 42% of its metals, and a really critical 33% of its rare earth and vital minerals like lithium.
So adding all that up, what's the total estimated value transfer the source suggests?
The source puts the total potential value of those resources shifting to Russia in around $12.4 trillion. It's not just money. It's strategic control over resources vital for modern industry.
And it's not just industrial resources, is it? The source also mentions agriculture.
That's right. Ukraine's the breadbasket. We know that. Donetsk itself is apparently one of Ukraine's top 10 agricultural regions. And all 4 of these annexed areas are among Ukraine's top 20 agricultural producers, significant wheat producers too, according to U.S. data.
So industrial power, energy, and agricultural clout. That's quite a package.
Big implications for food security too, given Ukraine's role in global grain supplies.
Okay, now shifting gears a bit. Our source brings up something maybe less obvious, but critical for Russia: the defense industry. How does annexing these specific Ukrainian regions help secure Russia's arms manufacturing?
Yeah, this is a really interesting point in the source material. It seems quite sensitive. Apparently, many companies in these parts of Ukraine traditionally supplied raw materials and components for Russian weapons and even their space program.
Really? Like what specifically?
Well, the source claims that 12 types of Russia's intercontinental ballistic missiles, the ICBMs, plus parts and maintenance, actually came from a city in eastern Ukraine. Also, special steel for Russian tanks, produced in Luhansk and Donetsk. And get this, most Russian combat helicopters use engines made in Zaporizhia.
Wow. So this isn't just about gaining territory. It's about, well, vertically integrating their own defense supply chain almost, making it more secure.
Exactly. Less reliance on potentially hostile or disrupted suppliers. It shores up their defense and aerospace base significantly.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's the demographic angle. The source mentioned that too.
Right. Russia has demographic challenges, a relatively small and declining population in recent years.
Yeah.
So adding roughly 9 million people via this annexation, that actually provides a noticeable boost to their numbers.
The demographic infusion, basically.
Yep.
Okay. And finally, there's the whole maritime and strategic picture, especially around the Sea of Azov.
Yes, this is a huge strategic piece. If this annexation holds, Ukraine basically loses access to the Sea of Azov. It would lose its most important ports, its sea routes there, a massive blow, economically and strategically.
And how does this tie back to Crimea? You mentioned the connection earlier.
It's a critical link. Annexing these regions creates a land bridge to Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014. This dramatically strengthens Russia's hold and security around the peninsula. They'd already built that bridge connecting the areas, remember?
Ah, right, the Kerch Strait Bridge.
Exactly. And think about this. A major headache for Russia in Crimea since 2014 was fresh water. Ukraine had dammed the North Crimean Canal, cutting off the main supply. Russia had to ship water in at huge cost.
Okay.
Well, just 2 days into the current conflict, Russia destroyed that dam. Fresh water flowed back to Crimea. Some analysts, according to the source, think securing that water supply might have been a key early objective.
That makes sense. Restoring water would certainly boost local support in Crimea for Putin.
Plausibly, yes. And now, these annexed regions act as a big buffer zone, too, making Crimea feel much more secure from Russia's perspective.
Okay, let's just quickly recap the potential gains for Russia here. It's a lot. Securing Crimea's flank and water, boosting population, getting vital materials for weapons, seizing enormous coal reserves, controlling key ports and sea access, grabbing prime farmland, absorbing major economic cities, and conversely, Ukraine potentially loses all of that. It's staggering.
It is. But the source is also careful to point out, this isn't necessarily a done deal. That's a key question, right? Many analysts think it's way too early to call. Russia doesn't actually have full military control over all the territory in those 4 regions, despite months of fighting.
Right. And there are challenges within Russia, too.
The source mentions internal challenges like protests against the war, and also the significant number of young men who left the country after the partial mobilization was announced. Meanwhile, on the ground, the Ukrainian army has been making real gains. They've recaptured significant chunks of territory in these areas.
So the situation is still very fluid. The outcome isn't certain.
Not at all. It's highly contested.
Which leaves us with that big question hanging. Can Ukraine keep up its effectiveness? Can it actually push Russia out of these 4 regions entirely? Nobody knows for sure, obviously. We just have to wait and see how things unfold.
But connecting it back to the bigger picture, the fate of these specific resource-heavy regions, it's not just about lines on a map. It's really about future economic balance, the strategic setup, the military power dynamics, and that whole part of the world. The consequences are huge.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows there are so many layers beneath the surface, beneath the daily headlines, all that value, all that strategic importance. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Will history repeat itself? Will this annexation become permanent like Crimea while the world sort of adapts? Or will the ongoing fighting, Ukraine's resistance, actually change the map again and shift that balance of power back? Something for you to definitely consider as you think about everything we've unpacked today.